Teaching is not just a profession, but passion. Hello everyone, I am Dr. Karthika Kannan, Professor of Oral Medicine and Radiology, College of Dentistry, Majma University. You can follow me in my Instagram, skk_oral medicine, and my YouTube channel, Learning Made Simple. All the dentists should have the basic ability to do interpretation of radiograph for a successful practice. In this video, I am going to discuss about radio diagnosis, the application of radiographs for the diagnosis of pathology affecting the joint. The concept of this video is derived from feature recognition method proposed by Gary C. Coleman. Anything in radiology should be begun with respecting this great legend, Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen, who discovered X-ray in November 8, 1895. He has been awarded Nobel Prize for his discovery in the year 1901. So the feature recognition method suggests 7 important radiographic features. They are the 7 commandments of radiodiagnosis. The 7 features are type of X-ray attenuation, pattern of X-ray attenuation, location, that means the site, margins, shape of the lesion, size of the lesion, and alteration of adjacent structures. These are the 7 features that should be interpreted in a radiograph. Okay. There are 2 important things for a successful radiodiagnosis. The first one is the perception. Perception is the ability to identify these pathological changes in the radiograph. The second one is the cognition, the ability to interpret this data with the knowledge about the pathologies that can affect the jaws. Okay, so perception and cognition are 2 important ability that decides the perfection of radiodiagnosis. So let us see these features one by one. The first is type of X-ray attenuation. There can be 2 possibilities. A lesion can be radiolucent or a lesion can be radio opaque. Radiolucent lesion appears black or dark in the radiograph. Radio opaque lesion appears white or light in the radiographs. Let me show you an example. First, let me show you an example for radiolucent lesion. Here is a female patient, middle-aged female patient, with a swelling in the right body of the mandible. Intraoral examination shows a bicortical expansion with mild lingual and buccal expansion. The lateral oblique view radiograph of right mandible shows a huge unilocular radiolucent lesion in the body of the mandible. So when I say radiolucent, the meaning is the normal bone in this area is resorbed and it is replaced by a non-mineralized tissue. So non-mineralized tissue allows the X-ray to pass through and fall on the sensor or film and gives a dark or black appearance. So this is how a radiolucent lesion appears. And in this picture, you can also see the downward bowing, a group of centrifugally growing tumors like ossifying fibroma, cementifying fibroma, and cemento-ossifying fibroma. Now let me show you another case. This is an old female patient who had a swelling in the right maxilla right from the childhood. She has not taken any treatment for that. And intraorally, you can see all the other teeth has exfoliated and the teeth in the affected region is retained. And you can see here a bicortical expansion with the buccal and palatal expansion. And it is unilateral in distribution. That means it is affecting only the right half of the maxilla. The panoramic radiograph of that same patient shows a radio opaque white or lighter area in the right maxilla that gradually blends with the adjacent normal bone. This is a classical case of fibrous dysplasia, and you may be knowing fibrous dysplasia has different appearance in different stages. In the early stage, fibrous dysplasia will have a radiolucent appearance, and as it progresses, it will have a mixed radiopaque and radiolucent appearance, and towards the mature stage, it will become more radiopaque. And as this patient is a very old patient and it is a long-standing case of fibrous dysplasia, it has matured sufficiently and appear as a dense radiopacity merging with that of the adjacent normal tissue. So I have shown you an example where how a radiolucent lesion appears black and how a radio opaque lesion appears white or light. Now, so the message that we have got from the first feature is, if the lesion is radiolucent, it means the lesional tissue is non-mineralized. And if it is radio opaque, the meaning is the lesional tissue is more mineralized than the normal bone. Okay. So coming to the second feature, that is the pattern of attenuation. And some radiologists use or prefer the term internal structure or pattern of attenuation. So either radiolucency or radiopacity can be either homogeneous or heterogeneous. Either the lesion can be uniformly radiolucent or uniformly radiopaque, or there can be a combination of radiolucency and radiopacity. So we have two possibilities. One is homogeneous, another one is heterogeneous. Now let me show you an example for homogeneous lesion. This is an topographical occlusal view of maxilla, where you can see a unilocular, well-defined, corticated border lesion at the periapical region of the central and lateral incisor of the maxilla. And here the entire lesion is radiolucent, uniformly radiolucent. So I would prefer to call this as a homogeneous radiolucency. So what is the information we are getting? The lesion here is composed of a non-mineralized tissue that could be air, that could be fluid, or there could be a soft tissue, which is less mineralized or not mineralized, non-mineralized tissue that is replacing the normal bone. Here is a young female who is in the second decade of life with an asymptomatic swelling over the left maxilla. Here you can see a huge buccal expansion is there with the mild fullness of the palatal expansion, and the occlusal radiograph of the maxilla shows a dense homogeneous radiopacity, and the radiopaque lesion is merging with that of the normal bone. So this is a typical description and typical appearance of fibrous dysplasia called as ground glass appearance. So which is very typical of fibrous dysplasia. So I have shown you homogeneous radiolucent lesion. I have shown you an example for homogeneous radio opaque lesion. Now let me show you a heterogeneous lesion. This is a patient who had radiotherapy for oral cancer. You can see the skin changes associated with the previous radiotherapy, who has undergone a removal of a retained root stem in a private clinic, which was followed by the precipitation of osteomyelitis called as osteoradionecrosis. Here you can see this sequestrum. Here you can see the dead bone exposed at the site of extraction, and this is the extraoral sinus discharging the necrosed bone. And how the radiograph looks like? The radiograph looks like mixed radio-opaque and radiolucent lesion called as heterogeneous bone lesion. The radiographic appearance is called as moth-eaten appearance. So inflammatory lesions like osteomyelitis will have heterogeneous radiographic appearance. This is an This is a boy with a asymptomatic swelling over the maxillary anterior region, which was painless. And here you can see there is a retained deciduous lateral incisor and deciduous canine with missing permanent lateral and permanent canine. There is fullness of the buccal sulcus in that area, maxillary anterior region. And the radiograph shows an unilocular, well-defined corticated lesion there, and in the center of the lesion shows multiple flecks of radio-opaque structures resembling bone or cement. This is a case of adenomatoid odontogenic tumor. There are a group of odontogenic lesion called as productive lesion. They have the ability to produce radio-opaque structures resembling bone, cementum, and dentin. Okay, it's a case of adenomatoid odontogenic tumor. It is an example for heterogeneous lesion. So, what information we are getting from the second feature? So, the lesion can be either homogeneous or heterogeneous. If it is homogeneous, the lesion contains same type of tissue throughout the lesion. If it is heterogeneous, the pathology have different types of tissue in different places. So the content of the lesion, it gives an information about the content of the lesion. Now the third feature in this feature recognition method is the location or the site. If you can divide the jaw into two major areas. Those portion of the jaw which carries the teeth, which we call it as teeth bearing area, and the other half is called as non-tooth bearing area. Okay, majority of the odontogenic pathology which arises from the odontogenic epithelium and apparatus comes in the teeth bearing area, and majority of the non-odontogenic pathologies that arises from the bone marrow, from the bone, arises in the non-tooth bearing area. Example for non-tooth bearing area are ramus, condyle, coronary process, and the bone below the mandibular canal. Okay, and the second group of lesion is multifocal. When you see lesions in different portion of the jaw, we call it as multifocal. There is a set of condition that can come as multifocal pathology. And if there is a generalized alteration of the bone pattern of maxilla or mandible, we are dealing with a more systemic disease than localized. Now let me show you example how a site can give you a diagnosis. So here is an intraoral picture. Here you can see there is a missing second premolar, and there is a retained deciduous molar. Okay, the radiograph of the same patient. This is a lateral oblique view of the same patient, showing the impacted second premolar and a pericoronal radiolucency. Look at that. Surrounding the crown, there is a unilocular radiolucency that comes and ends at almost at the cemento-enamel junction, and it looks like a dentigerous cyst. And there is a general agreed criteria that if the pericoronal radiolucency stops exactly at the cemento-enamel junction, the chances of it being dentigerous cyst is more. If portion of the root also is included into the lumen of the pathology, then we should include other differential diagnosis like odontogenic keratocyst, AOT, and CEOT, calcifying epithelial odontogenic tumor, or odontogenic fibroma also. So there's a set of differential diagnosis for such criteria. So here the lesion is of odontogenic origin. Dentigerous cyst result from the accumulation of fluid between the reduced enamel epithelium and the crown. So the pathology also occurs in the tooth bearing area, and it has pushed the mandibular canal towards the lower border of the mandible. So it has started from the tooth bearing portion, pushed the mandibular canal towards the lower border of the mandible. So it is an odontogenic pathology. This adult patient complains of difficulty in mouth opening. Intraoral there was nothing significant except for the mild tenderness in the retromolar area. The lateral oblique view of this patient showed a huge radiolucent lesion in the upper half of the ramus of the mandible, okay, towards the coronoid process. And also there is another one, another radiolucent lesion between the second and the third molar, and there is an arcuate bone loss surrounding the first molar. So there is a multifocal lesion, but even though it is multifocal, the 80%, the majority of the lesion is sitting on the ramus of the mandible, and the biopsy proved that it is a plasmacytoma, solitary plasmacytoma, a tumor arising from the plasma cell. So it is a non-odontogenic pathology. That is why 80% of the majority of the lesion was located in the non-odontogenic area, non-tooth-bearing area of the jaw. So that is the point. So what is the information we are getting is, if there is a lesion in the tooth-bearing area of the bone, the chances of it being odontogenic is high. If there is a lesion on the non-tooth-bearing bone, then the chances of non-odontogenic pathology is more. This is another example, an young boy with a rapidly growing swelling in front of the ear in the ramus of the mandible. So the panorama showed a well corticated lesion, but it is located in the ramus towards the condyle. So a clinical diagnosis of cartilaginous pathology from condyle or bone pathology from the condyle and ramus was made. So chondroma and chondrosarcoma and osteosarcoma was made because it is rapidly growing. So with mild pain also. So biopsy proved it was osteogenic sarcoma. Now the next pathology that we are going to see, the next case is a multifocal lesion. Here you can see there is a lesion on the four quadrants of the jaws, both the quadrants of the maxilla and both the quadrants of the mandible. And the radiograph, panoramic radiograph, shows extensive lesion, arcuate lesion involving all the four posterior quadrants, giving the tooth a floating appearance. A case of eosinophilic granuloma. Even though it is a non-odontogenic pathology, it has an affinity for the alveolar bone. Okay, so whenever we have multifocal lesion, lesion involving multiple sites, we have different set of differential diagnosis. I will give you some example. Multiple myeloma, which comes at multiple area. Hyperparathyroidism, there will be multiple lesions in the jaws. Then metastatic carcinoma, any primary cancer from other parts of the body metastasizing to the jaws will have multiple sites involved, and eosinophilic granuloma. These are some examples for multifocal lesion. Now let me show you when there is a generalized change in the architecture of the bone, we are dealing with a more systemic disease. So this patient, the history of multiple fracture of the long bone, here you can see history of fracture, and there is an evidence for the fracture of the femur and humerus bone, and there is a pot belly and liver and spleen was enlarged, and had undergone extraction of two primary tooth in a private clinic that has resulted in osteomyelitis and extraoral sinus discharging pus. So what has happened? The panoramic radiograph, just for comparison, I have put a normal radiograph. Here you can see nothing is clear and evident. So there are multiple impacted tooth, and the bone structure architecture is entirely affected. The entire mandible and maxilla is affected. Maxillary sinus is sclerosed, and this is a sinus view where we can see the maxillary sinus is sclerosed, and the entire bone looks like more opaque, radio opaque and sclerosed. And this is the chest radiograph showing the ribs, and you can compare the normal chest radiograph with that of the patient, where normally you have a medullary bone and you have cortical bone on either side. Everything is lost, and you can also appreciate the cardiomegaly. This patient is severely anemic, so the heart has to perform extra, and it has resulted in cardiomegaly. And this is the pathological radiograph, where you can see the fracture of femur and pelvic, and the shape of the femur is altered. It is called as Erlenmeyer flask appearance, which is very typical of a condition called as marble bone disease. Marble bone disease. So if the pattern of marble bone disease is always called as osteopetrosis. So osteopetrosis is the name given for marble bone disease. It is a disease where the problem with the osteoclast. The osteoclast fails to resorb the normal bone, so there will be deposition of normal bone, which results in the obliteration of the medullary bone. Bone marrow is obliterated, and that job of the bone marrow will be taken up by the liver and spleen. So the liver and spleen will take up the hemopoiesis, and that will start enlarging, hepatosplenomegaly. That is why there is spot belly. So here we are dealing with a systemic bone disease, and that manifests in the jaw as a generalized alteration of the bone pattern. So this is how the site of the lesion is going to help us to diagnose. So the site can be localized in the area of the tooth-bearing bone or non-tooth bearing bone. Okay, then it can be multifocal lesion or it can be generalized alteration of the bone. Now the fourth feature that we are going to see is the margin. Margin is the place where the pathology meets the normal bone. So if the junction of the pathology and the normal bone is well defined and corticated, that means the pathology is a slow growing pathology. If it is poorly delineated or ill defined, that means the pathology is fast growing. Just by looking at the margin, I will be able to tell that it is a slow growing pathology or it is a fast growing pathology. So that is the beauty of looking at the margin. Now let me show you some example. Here is a panorama where you can see an impacted third molar and there is a pericoronal radiolucency. But look at the margin. The margin is well defined and corticated. That means it is a slow growing pathology. Most probably it will be a cystic lesion or a benign tumor. Whereas an aggressive lesion like oral cancer, which has resulted in orofacial fistula, if you take a radiograph, you can see a ill-defined radiolucency with ill-defined margin, and also there is a pathological fracture here. So if the margin is ill-defined, that shows it is a very aggressive lesion. Only two conditions can have ill-defined margin. One is an inflammatory condition like osteomyelitis, osteoradionecrosis, and also a cancer, oral cancer. So the next feature that we are going to discuss is the shape. And in conventional radiology, shape has a big role to play in the diagnosis, because we segregate, we formulate differential diagnosis based on the shape. We have a set of differential diagnosis for unilocular radiolucency. We have set of differential diagnosis for multilocular radiolucency. So the shape characterization in conventional radiology is a key factor for diagnosis. So now let me show you example for each one of this. Here is a patient. Here is a occlusal radiograph showing an ovoid or unilocular ovoid radiolucency in associated with the root stump, and it is a periapical cyst. And here is a panorama where you can see a huge pathology affecting the body of the mandible towards the midline, and there is an impacted premolar here, and there is a retained deciduous tooth there, and you can see small loculation looking like honeycomb type of multilocular radiolucency, which is typical of an ameloblastoma. Here you can see loculations of different size and shape, looking like soap bubble appearance. Again, characteristic feature of ameloblastoma, wadendogenic keratocyst, and this is a case of ameloblastoma. So I have shown you example for unilocular and multilocular. And this is a young female patient in their second decade. There is a fast growing, painful swelling in the mandibular anterior region, and there is a buccal expansion also. And radiograph shows a multilocular radiolucency with wispy trabecula. And this particular region, mandibular anterior region, is a very peculiar site for central giant cell granuloma. Sometime, apart from unilocular and multilocular, we will come across radiolucency which have ill-defined border. Ill-defined border. The border is not very clear. Especially this is characteristic of intraosseous carcinoma or metastatic carcinoma. Intraosseous carcinoma or metastatic carcinoma will have a ill-defined border. Similarly, osteomyelitis also will have an ill-defined border or irregular shape. That will be the best description. Not will have ill-defined border as well as it has a irregular shape. So that denotes an aggressive pathology. Now, the sixth feature that we are going to see in this feature recognition method is the size. Size do matter. Size do matter. Size less than 1 centimeter. If there is a pathology less than 1 centimeter, you should not expect the characteristic clinical features, radiographic features of a pathology. If the size is more than 1 centimeter, then there is every possibility that we can get the typical radiographic appearance of the pathology. So let me show you an example. Here is a series of occlusal radiographs taken for a patient. Here you can see there is an impacted premolar and there is an associated cystic change. And this premolar associated with the cyst was removed in the first instance. Now, after the removal enucleation of the tooth and the cyst, again the cyst has recurred for the second time. When this second time recurrence, you can also notice there is a unilocular radiolucency and there is a developing canine. So this looks like an enlarged follicle. So this was histopathologically proved as keratocyst. So second time also the recurrence was removed, enucleated. But by the time the patient reported after 6 months, the lesion which was small and unilocular now shows the typical multilocular appearance of odontogenic keratosis associated with the impacted canine there, retained deciduous and impacted canine. So if the lesion is less than 1 centimeter, it won't show the typical nature, multilocularity of opus. But when it becomes more than 1 centimeter, it shows the typical radiographic feature of OKC. So this is what is that. When the second time recurrence, there was a unilocular radiolucency, but when it recurred, when it has become sufficient size, it showed the multilocularity. And when this canine and this multilocular lesion was enucleated, again it recurred for the second time. So multiple recurring odontogenic keratosis is a feature of a greater pathology called as nevoid basal cell carcinoma syndrome or Gorlin-Goetz syndrome. Here you can see the same patient also had a cleft in the spine. So spina bifida occulta. So that is what is the name suggests. There is a bifid, the cleft in the vertebra. And also there will be a bifid rib that could be appreciated in this radiograph. There is a rib which is dividing into two, bifid rib, fork-like rib. So bifid rib syndrome. This is called as Gorlin-Goetz syndrome. So the last feature of feature recognition method is the alteration of adjacent structures. So benign pathologies, slow growing pathologies, cystic pathologies generally distort the adjacent structures. What it will do is cortical expansion, displacement of the tooth or root, uniform resorption of the root, shifting of the neurovascular bundle, something like mandibular canal or maxillary sinus. These are all deforming effect of slow growing pathology. Whereas fast growing pathologies like malignancy and osteomyelitis produce destruction, cortical perforation, ragged root resorption, or spiked roots or extrusion of the roots. So let me show you some example. Here is a case of a benign odontogenic tumor in the mandible which has caused external root resorption, and the second molar supposed to be here was gradually pushed towards the coronoid process. Such a displacement is possible only with a slow growing steady pressure by the benign tumor. And the neurovascular bundle, mandibular canal also will be pushed towards the lower border of the mandible. Again, a similar case of ameloblastoma, where the third molar has been pushed towards the condyle, second molar is pushed towards the lower border. Such a displacement of the tooth, resorption of the tooth, displacement of the neurovascular bundle is a feature of slow growing pathologies like cyst and benign tumor. Whereas aggressive lesions, fast growing lesions, usually resorb the surrounding bone, which results in the exfoliation of the tooth, cortical perforation, spiking of the root, or extrusion of the tooth and exfoliation of the tooth. So this is a feature of an aggressive lesion. So in conclusion, conventional radiographs have a lot of advantage. It is easily available, it is non-invasive and cost effective. And the images, moreover, the images are disease specific. Okay. The disadvantage of conventional radiographs are they are two-dimensional images of three-dimensional structures. That is the problem, inherent problem of conventional radiographs. And also there will be superimposition of anatomical structures. Limitations of conventional radiographs includes many of the lesions have more than one type of radiographic appearance. I have told you previously. This is a table showing the different appearances of different lesions. For example, ameloblastoma have radiolucent and mixed radio-opaque and radiolucent. Desmoplastic type of ameloblastoma has mixed radiolucent and radio-opaque appearance. Central genital granuloma, again radiolucent and also shows mixed. Fibrous dysplasia shows all the three appearance: radiolucent, mixed, and radio-opaque appearance. Okay, so this presentation was done long back in 2002 at the National Conference of Indian Academy of Oral Medicine and Radiology, and I have been awarded as the first prize as the best junior faculty paper presentation in the year 2002. That has given me a lot of confidence and pursue this as a career with a lot of interest. So thank you for watching this video. Let me conclude this video by saying a beautiful statement: the eye does not see what the mind does not know. So until you train your mind, your eyes won't pick the changes in the radiograph. This shadow-graphs of black, white and gray images will speak to you and will give you a lot of clue for making a good diagnosis. I hope this presentation was interesting and you like this presentation. If you like this presentation, please click like button and share button and subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching. Thank you, one and all.